This video is brought to you by my patrons, my thoughts and opinions, the person who suggested this video, and the patience of 5 saints. Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel where I talk about whatever catches my attention. I'm Kit, and on June 29th, 2025, Jubilee published the video, 1 Conservative versus 20 Feminists featuring Candace Owens. And I'm pretty sure we're supposed to infer conservative and feminism don't go together, which it doesn't, but, well, Mary Harrington and Louise Perry would disagree. I would also say there's a difference between being conservative and being anti-feminist, and that Candace is the latter. Jubilee is really burying the lead here. But anyway, I was asked to give my thoughts on this discussion, and so here we are. From what I can tell, the Surrounded series consists of one notable person, in this case, Candace Owens, and however many people of opposing views sitting down to have the well-known person state their claims, and then the others race to get to the chair to challenge them. And I'm really not sure how this is conducive to anything, because you have a time limit of 20 minutes, and more often than not, they're kicked out of the chair by a certain number of red flags being raised. Not really enough time to get anywhere. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is just to get those sweet, sweet advertising dollars. Anyway, Candace makes 4 claims, so let's get into it. And to note, I'm going to be focusing on what Candace says, not the feminists. Because, let's be honest, she's the reason that video has 7 million views. And I already know I'll have more thoughts about her claims. Just reading the timestamps, I have thoughts. And before we dive in, if you would like a more thorough look at Candace's debate tactics in this video, Rationality Rules is doing a series. And now, claim number 1. The sexual revolution has devalued women and made them infinitely less happy. Infinitely. Quite a claim.
But the sexual revolution, encouraging women to give up their goods for free, which is what I'm speaking about, and encouraging men not to marry these women or to have long-term relationships, what I am saying is a direct contributor to their unhappiness, because women are giving up their goods for free and women are now entering the workplace, and that does not actually make them happy.
Okay, pause.
The first debater was voted out at this point, but I'm grateful she got Candace to expound on this claim. And as, a person, I object to the notion that I'm giving up the goods when I have sex with someone I'm not married to. I'm not an object, I'm a person, and sex isn't something I give up. It's an activity I engage in, because I'm a person. Anyway, I'm also grateful to Zena for getting Candace to explain how she thinks women have been devalued. TLDR.
When women are having sex with multiple partners, it devalues them for men, right?
For men. So,
yes.
Men define a woman's worth.
Well, I would say both of them kind of define one another's worth, because I think the ultimate goal for people to be happy is actually family.
According to Candace, people are getting married later not because of economic reasons or because that's an active decision they've made, but because so much sex outside marriage is being had that it's hard to find a good partner. I would really like a source for this claim. We don't get that, but we do get this.
You're saying there's no individual case in which a woman can feel, fulfilled without being tied to other people. In the case of family.
I think there could be an exceptional case for everything. I think there are exceptional cases, but I think that if we all start trying to be the exception as opposed to recognizing the rule, which is that people in life are more fulfilled when they achieve a family unit and when they have children, women in particular, especially aspiring to children, then you are going to end up with a bunch of people who are unhappy because your job cannot replace the feeling of having a family.
It apparently hasn't occurred to Candace that people aren't trying to be the exception to her rule, they simply are. It also hasn't apparently occurred to any tradcon or religious influencer that women have more options beyond career or family, because they persistently frame women's lives as those 2 choices. You can be a ball-busting boss babe, say that 5 times fast, or you can be Susie Homemaker, and nothing in between exists, nothing else exists. Even though Candace herself is literally married with 4 kids and she has a career. And as part of her career, in this video, she is sitting in a studio across the country from her family, talking about how women would be happier at home with their family. Anyway, that's pretty much it for claim number 1. Now we move on to claim number 2. No career will give women as much joy and fulfillment as raising children. And I truly don't understand why that can't just be true for Candace herself. Instead, she's literally made it her career, leaving her family behind to do it, to convince other women that that's true for them.
I think because it speaks to natural order, and every piece of life, I think, is enriched by children.
You don't think it's natural for women to get to decide what they want to do with their lives?
I do not think that saying women can decide whether or not they want to go to work or have children is problematic. What I'm saying to you is that women will get the most fulfillment from having a family.
Because it's natural.
It's natural, but also children are wonderful and beautiful and spiritually divine creatures. I mean, they're amazing. There's everything about having a child. Yes, it's a lot of work. It's beautiful.
It's good that Candace thinks so, since she has 4 kids, but I don't understand why it's so important to her that other women agree. And I don't know how many watched my "Why does anyone listen to Alex Clark" video, but there was a clip of Candace arguing about how it's natural for men to work 80 hours a week. If kids are as wonderful and beautiful and spiritually divine and amazing as Candace says, why isn't she also arguing that no career will give men as much joy and fulfillment as raising children? That quote, "No one on their deathbed ever said, 'I wish I'd spent more time at work,' is applicable to men as well. But for some reason, Candace only focuses on women. Though in that same clip, she did indicate it's suspicious for men to want to look after kids, so. Anyway, if anyone is wondering why women don't just stay home if it's so fulfilling,
there's a lot of financial pressure that is being exerted on young women to enter the workforce, and they do so blindly under this illusion that somehow entering the workforce is going to make you more fulfilled, like getting yourself into 6 figures of debt going to college to then take on a career and be in debt and having to pay student loans while you make $35K is going to make you happier. And I'm saying that isn't actually true.
I love it when these folks critique capitalism, but of course they can't say that, so they instead pretend they're critiquing feminism. What is it that causes people, not just young women, to face financial pressures? What is it that demands people have degrees for entry-level work? What caused wages to stagnate while CEO pay grew exponentially? It's not feminism.
I have both children and a career, as somebody pointed out. And so the fact that I'm saying that you will be infinitely more fulfilled at the end of the day by raising your children than you will be if you come home and you say, wow, I really crushed it dyeing somebody's hair today. What is it exactly that makes you angry about hearing that?
I'm not sure I would go so far as to say hearing that makes me angry, but it does make me wonder at the audacity of a person who would presume to make such a statement to a stranger, especially since they're not applying it to everyone, just to women, and it's also insulting to presume you know someone you've never met before more than that person knows themselves. And it's potentially hurtful. Even if someone doesn't have kids, you don't know why. And it's really not a stranger's business. It can be true for Candace that she has a career in kids and she finds kids more fulfilling. What I don't understand is why she's so pressed that everyone else agree.
It is it's totally a dishonest narrative that men and women want the same things out of life. We don't. We absolutely do not want the same things out of life. In fact, we don't even measure success the same.
I just wanted to share that because of the man in the back. His expression was great. Anyway, I think there are a lot of men that would disagree with Candace, and even if that was true, that still doesn't make Candace Owens the arbiter of female happiness.
And that is in large part due to feminism. Women don't even focus. Like there's this idea that women shouldn't be cooking. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with women even learning how to cook.
Feminism didn't tell women not to learn how to cook. That's a life skill everyone should have. Anyway, on to claim number 3. We live under a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. And if, like me, you're wondering how Candace got here, prepare to be disappointed.
Patriarchy is the idea that our system in America is being run by men and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it. And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
So matriarchy is when people are socially and politically influenced by women. Candace also rejects the idea that disparity is inequality. Fewer women just choose to go into politics and such, because women live in vacuums and nothing influences their decisions except their own wants and desires.
Like I think that now the pressure is that if a woman doesn't enter the force, there's no longer this idea that, okay, we're going to come together as a family, whereas there was this reality that there was this understanding that you would have a partner. People were getting married when they were 18, 19 years old. Right. Our grandparents, now it's because of feminism. And I'm saying this is the downside of feminism. Women no longer have that sense. They think that they have to be pressured to go take out a loan to go to college, and then you have the pressure to get.
Well, they have the same pressures as men because women no longer rely on it for an income.
For as long as we've been tracking the data, teen brides haven't been the norm in the U.S. And that's a good thing. An additional 5 minutes was added for this claim, and Candace manages to devolve into a lecture about how Abortion is murder, feminism made women go into paid work, and finally, companies shouldn't have to pay for parental leave, because then companies would have to pay for an employee that isn't working, and government would have to raise taxes on everyone else to pay for that employee. So, ladies, there you are. You should have kids because it will make you happy, but if you can't afford to do that, well, you're on your own. But you should do it, because it will make you happy. Everyone loves having kids and struggling to afford the necessities. Anyway, now we're on to the fourth and final claim. Feminism has made things easier for men. It's really kind of a shame that she just gets to make these claims and not explain what she means. Instead, others are left to draw out her meaning, and in my opinion, that's not really conducive to a legible anything. But unsurprisingly, she just means sex.
It's made things, I think, easier in society for men. Yeah. Now men don't have to commit, and they're being offered sex from women for free. So they have to actually effectively do less and be motivated less, because feminism has kind of insisted on this culture of sex and hooking up. And I think that has been a net negative for women.
Anti-feminists really, really want to reduce feminism down to just being about sex for some reason. It's so lazy. And it's kind of insulting to insinuate that men have easier lives because they, supposedly, have easier access to sex. But sure, I think that nowadays it's easier for men and women to have sex without having to commit. And I think that's a good thing. Getting married just to have sex isn't a good reason to get married. Anyway, remember all those times I've said the anti-feminist in question is arguing against capitalism, not feminism? Well, Candace has heard that before.
Well, we have to spend more money to live, right. I think in large part because feminists got duped by the government. And I think we just keep further enslaving ourselves to the government. I'm not a person who believes in big government. And yet you find that feminists are constantly like, well, we can deal with the college issue. We just need more government. We can deal with the, needing to have more benefits. We just need more government. So it's like, okay, let's just tax every household 100%. And I'm trying to prevent that. And I'm saying that there was a time in America, and what's aspirational for me is I was, raised in part by my grandparents. They were very happy. They were just, I lived in that environment of what that looked like. And I think for many of people who didn't grow up there, feminism has taught us, and I say this as someone who had to take feminism 101 courses when I was in college, that it was like this nightmare, and people weren't happy, and people were suffering, and women were people were being forced, and that there weren't actually these things that just marriages that worked, that the women actually weren't disempowered by being the CEOs of their household.
If I'm following correctly, please forgive me because this seems a bit vague, but I'm trying. Candace was raised by her grandparents and they seemed happy, so she thinks the 1950s is the time we should aspire to go back to because people seemed happier back then and you could maintain a family on one income. But she doesn't seem to understand that, well, for one, seeming happy and being happy are two different things. Her family is not representative of everyone, and those were very, very specific circumstances. World War II had just ended, Europe was putting itself back together, and union involvement was high, and so were taxes. It was also a very specific woman that didn't have to work, and she was overrepresented in advertisements, which is why so many of us have this idea that the 1950s was this time of perfection when men worked and women stayed home, and everyone was happy and healthy. I will give the 50s credit. Their ad campaigns were so good, they're still working 70 years later. But we can't confuse fiction with reality. And it's concerning that I have to say this. And I just want to say, conservatives don't care about happiness. If you're trans, they think you should hide that. If you're gay, they think you should hide that. If you're a woman who finds fulfillment in a career, they think you should follow your biological destiny. They don't care if their worldview makes someone happy or not. They just want to control. But they will sell it to you as this will make you happy, not unlike an advertisement. Anyway, Candace chooses Jenny to debate, and Jenny's claim is that feminism is wrongly interpreted as anti-men when it benefits both men and women. And Candace has some thoughts on that.
So I think that in today's environment, when you look at the messaging that's coming out from self-proclaimed feminists, it's very much an F men can't do anything, women can do bad all by themselves sort of colloquial messaging, which I think is harmful to men and to women.
Funnily enough, I've heard more anti-feminists talk about how feminists say they hate men and all that, more than I've ever seen a woman, feminist or not, say or post that. I do find it funny that Candace simultaneously thinks feminism is anti-men and also that it makes men's lives easier, though apparently only sexually. But anyway, I really like Jenny's response.
I do understand how it may come across as negative when women say things like, I hate all men, or F men this, F men that. But I'm also, as a woman, not going to fault other women for having that perspective and fear, because unfortunately our greatest predator is men. Mm-hmm. Our greatest harm does come from men. Mm-hmm. And therefore, when women have experienced violence from men, when women have experienced oppression from men, I'm not going to fault them for feeling that way and expressing such. And I think the onus does rely more on men for acknowledging that these issues do exist. It is harming women. And unfortunately, a lot of men don't listen to women, and they actually would rather listen to other men. While that may seem like negative messaging, if we can get past the idea of, oh, this feels like it's attacking my character, like I feel like feminism is attacking me as a man, then I think that we can have a much more productive discussion and move forward in making sure that this society is better for everybody.
I wish I had even half of Jenny's eloquence, while speaking with Candace Owens, no less. Of course, Candace isn't here for a good faith discussion. Jenny gives a heartfelt speech about how feminism can benefit men, and all the men she knows are feminists, and that's how they have a beautiful community and beautiful friendships. And this is Candace's response.
Yeah, so I would actually even expand it to say that not only is feminism hostile to men, but it's also very hostile to women. And I think you saw a lot of an example of that today, where there seems to be a reaction when a woman says children are beautiful. It's like, oh my God, how dare you say that, like having a child? And it's like, why is there this instant reaction to people that are traditional?
Zena's reaction in the background summed it up pretty well. No one had a reaction to her saying children are beautiful. That is so disingenuous. The reaction was to the blanket statement that women would find having kids more fulfilling, and that a stranger thinks she knows better than a woman herself would fulfill her.
And you see that when we have a society which is really kind of being dominated by what I would call like this hyper sexual character, like of the Kim Kardashian prototype of feminism, weighed against the other extreme, which would be like the Lena Dunham types who are coming out. Lena Dunham's much more the F men forever. Kim Kardashian is kind of the, when I was saying like, come get everything for free.
Fun fact, Lena Dunham is married to a man. Not constantly cheerleading men doesn't mean you hate them.
You know, that sort of a model. And I think both of them reject tradition in a way that there's a little bit of hatred there for women who don't want to climb the ladder and work 45 hours a week for a small paycheck, and who actually aspire to marriage. They think that there's something intrinsically backwards about that. They think that there's something wrong with women who are wholesome and happy, and they instantly try to problematize that.
From what she said previously, I would assume they is Kim Kardashian and Lena Dunham, but I really don't think either of them care about how much women do or don't work for pay. Well, I know Kim, or one of her sisters, was snooty about how people don't want to work anymore, but I think that was more of a rich person thing than a feminism thing.
And I'd say one of the greatest cultural examples of that today was like the feminist attack on Ballerina Farm, which just kind of came out of nowhere. It was so weird. Like, we have an example of every feminist on the cover of everything, and it's like, but no, this woman can't have 10 million followers. She's not allowed to have 10 million followers. We have to take her down.
Ballerina Farm still has over 10 million followers, so I don't know what Candace means by we have to take her down, unless she means disagree. But, well, if you don't want people to have opinions on your life, don't monetize it. And especially don't speak to reporters about it.
And that to me is the greatest example of what modern feminism has become, because they pretend it's about choice.
It's not about choice.
But in reality, they want every woman to enter the workforce and to pretend that they're happy in the workforce.
Also not about that. Anti-feminists really lack imagination.
From a 9-to-5 job trying to compete with men. And I think if people are being honest, the overwhelming majority of women are doing that because of financial power, not because they're really happy. And that's why they're binge drinking on the weekends.
Well, I don't love my job, but I do generally enjoy it. And I love that it enables me to live my life the way I want to instead of being beholden to someone else. And yes, I am aware that jobs are not forever, but neither are relationships. And I would not want to be with someone solely for financial security. Nor would I want someone to be with me solely for financial security. I also don't binge drink, ever. I don't really drink that often, actually. Nor do I do drugs. Sorry, Candace. Anyway, Jenny interjects here, and she says that feminism gives women options, which I think is preferable to choice. Candace really wants to talk about Ballerina Farm for some reason, though, so I'm going to link to Jordan and McKay's video on her below. As for our Mormons, I think they have some really good insight into why it's not just Hannah's choice to live on a farm and have 8 kids.
I've never met a feminist that didn't find a problem with the trad wives. And that's my point, is that it's this illusion.
Well, you're meeting one now.
I don't know if Candace is genuinely unaware, and I do find that hard to believe since being online is her job, but trad wife isn't the same as housewife. I have no problem with stay-at-home parents and spouses. I do have a problem with trad wives because of the belief that women need to submit to men and, the white supremacy. Anyway, in conclusion,
if the majority of women did not invest time to start a family, women would be miserable. And I think that recognizing that when women start to, the biological clock is real, and women start to recognize that they spend so much time trying to climb a ladder and they maybe don't find a partner, and it's harder to find a partner now because, as I said, we have devalued ourselves by giving up sex so freely. I do see that there is an increase in those types of women who are relying on drugs to make them happy, whether they're
but not everybody wants marriage, and not everybody wants a relationship.
I think overwhelmingly, women do want the safety of a relationship and a happy home. And I think that feminism lies to you and tells you that you don't until it's too late. And that is what I do a lot of work trying to get women to understand. And I also think it's something that women that are young need to come to terms with, or they're going to end up on the other side and be miserable and be popping pills like a lot of women who bought into the illusion of feminism did.
So basically, Candace thinks women are stupid and need someone like herself to tell them what they want, because if left to their own devices, they will choose wrong. And actually, they won't even choose, because if Candace doesn't tell them what they should do, feminism will. It's never women deciding their lives for themselves, unless they choose to marry and stay home with their kids, in which case, that was freely chosen. But if they go to college, have a demanding job, don't have kids, well, that's just women falling victim to the lies of feminism, and they will regret it when it's too late. Whereupon they will apparently turn to alcohol and pills.
I guess I would just say we all agree that sandwiches are good. We just disagree on who should be making them.
Very cute. So, final thoughts? Well, that was shallow. It's always the same lines over and over. Marriage and kids are what make women happy and fulfilled, but feminism says you must work for pay, and apparently that's it. You can't have friends or hobbies or anything else, even though, well, feminists are actually people. Some are married, some have kids, some have both, some have neither. We all have hobbies and friends and interests and so on. For anyone curious about how this feminist lives, I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky as Disobedient Jezebel. And for anyone interested in learning more about feminism, I have a lot of links below. I'm also working on a resource document where I can list all my sources, and I might throw some book recommendations in there as well. It's a very ambitious undertaking, which is why I've been working on it for, 3 months? Anyway, I have some notes that I emailed to myself while listening to this for the first time, and I'm going to include them here. So Candace thinks science is a pagan cult, except when it backs up her claims.
Actually, what I am somebody who has left the cult of science. I have left the mega church of science, because what I have now realized is that science, what it is actually, if you think about it, is a pagan faith.
Candace believes that women are happier having kids, and I bet she thinks society needs kids, but she doesn't want society to pay for those kids. Candace falls victim to the idea that women are free to make whatever choice they want without, apparently, realizing that there are external factors at play. What you see other women doing, harassment, education, scheduling. How are toy trucks natural for boys to play with? They were invented in 1912. Ballerina Farm, this is a thing I've noticed conservatives like to do, where they engage with low-effort content to make the point that no critique is being made. But there are articles and videos about Ballerina Farm that explain why all is not as it seems, that discusses the background, but that involves nuance and discussion, which it seems conservatives aren't interested in. More disingenuousness from Candace. People have no problem with, I love being married and having kids. What people have a problem with is, and I think everyone should do that too. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.